Hello, everybody, and welcome to Whispers Radio here on AM 1600 WKKX, the Valley's Watchdog, and UPRN, the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. I'm Jordan Klein here with Rachel Todd and the lovely Lola Miller. There's the giggle.
There we go. All right.
Give Lola a call, 304-214-1600. This is the recorded show, so...
Yes, it is May...
The
9th.
May 9th.
Yeah.
It is May 9th, around 6-something p.m. Some weather outside.
I have no...
I wonder how...
I could psych it.
I wonder how long we can do this without getting in trouble. It'd be like, I was just listening to the idiot you had last night. This is a recorded show.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Alrighty, our guest tonight, we've talked about him for a few weeks now. Star of the new series on Animal Planet, Demon Hunters, friend of the show, has been with us several times. We've brought him to our lovely town of Wheeling and made him sleep up there with the Krishnas. Mr. Dwayne Claude.
And he still doesn't hold that against us. I'm amazed.
You know, I'm still working my way through that whole...
You know you loved it.
Oh, it was a great time. It was a great time.
We were just talking, Lola and I were just talking about how we were sitting down in the Sugar Shack for like the last 2 hours of the ghost hunt giggling like little girls.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember just kind of watching that laser thermometer go back and forth. I felt like a cat being mesmerized. I think we were all so tired by that time that you know we didn't really know what was going on.
Well, I can tell you one thing I know didn't go on, and that was any ghosts bother us that night.
No, it was pretty quiet there that night, if I remember right.
Oh, you remember correctly, that's for sure.
Well, you know, Herb was getting stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was getting a lot of EVPs. Mm-hmm.
We've got the hot place this year. It's a school in South Point, Pennsylvania, that is supposed to be so active you don't even need a recorder, that the kids just talk to you.
Wow, sounds like my daughter's middle school.
Kind of.
It's an elementary school out by Pittsburgh. Like the guy, he's saying that, you know, he likes to do he has people come in doing ghost hunts with like candles and you know, just regular tape recorders, nothing digital, and you know, it's pretty active.
Yeah.
Ooh, sounds like fun.
And then he's giving us the green light. Are you joining us?
Oh, I might be able to be persuaded.
Okay. Good.
So, since last year,
what have you been up to?
You've been a busy fella.
I've been a very busy fellow. We actually just finished shooting and airing a pilot, anyways, for Animal Planet called The Demon Exorcist, and it had a real unique opportunity to work with the individuals from Firecracker Films. They actually followed me on a couple of cases that I did, and really did a wonderful job of just kind of being a fly on the wall and just kind of watching as I work through cases. And I think it really gave people the opportunity to see just a little bit how demonology is different than ghost hunting, and how it really kind of stretches beyond the is there a ghost here or not, and really kind of reaches into the human element of everything that's going on. And you know, the only challenging thing is that, you know, unfortunately, with any of these shows that you see on television, you only get a really small snippet of what actually happens while you're there, and the work that you do with people. And you know, each of the cases that we were working on, we were there for 4 or 5 days, and you know, to boil that down into 15, 20 minutes is nearly impossible, but somehow they did it.
Wow.
They took that many days, and you only had to. They're only showing 20 minutes.
Yeah. We shot actually for 3 weeks straight, and it's amazing the amount of things that were not shown. And you know, it was really more to get across the point of what the families were going through, and to show that even though that they are going through it, there was a way to get through it, and that there was hope, and it was just kind of amazing, the transformations that you've seen.
Now, are we talking transformations like they were oppressed and now they are not oppressed, or physical transformations like?
Well, not physical transformation, but just the changes in how the situations for the individuals changed, how the perceptions changed, how things came from a place where they were feeling very challenged and very hopeless in many ways to places where there was hope. And again, it's just really an amazing thing. I mean, because as a demonologist, I don't go into a location hoping to gather evidence, to prove whether or not there's something there. By the time I'm going there, there's already been teams there that have gathered the evidence, that have, many times brought, clergy in, or done blessings on the houses, or worked with the individuals. And, I'm really there more to work with the people, to help the people.
Now, what is it that you do that is different than clergy?
Well, I think one of the challenges is demonology has such a religious overtone to it, and part of that's because of the Catholic Church, and a lot of the focus throughout the past years, especially in the media, has been on exorcists and the Roman Catholic Church and how they all work hand to hand. What I do is quite a bit different than what a clergy person does. Although our paths do cross and we do similar things, I tend to, when I go into a situation like that, I do look at it as a paranormal investigator, but I also look at what's going on as a historian. Also look at the dynamics of the family. Going in with more than just a religious or faith-based theme to what's going on, looking for the scientific or psychological reasons of why things may or may not be happening and how it influences people. Where a lot of times a clergy person will go in with just the sole focus of, okay, you need to bring God into the situation to change the situation. And I'm not saying that that's not what has to happen, but sometimes you have to work within the belief systems of the individuals. And that can be a challenge because not everyone is Roman Catholic. Some are Wiccan, some are pagan, some are Baptist, some are Pentecostal. So you really have to reach within their faith, their belief systems, the reality that's been created around them with a particular haunting that they're going through to be able to help them. I mean, a lot of times you're going into the darkness to try and bring them back to the light, where a clergy person is kind of bringing the light to them, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. What have you run into people that are not particularly religious, and yet at this point, this is like the only avenue they feel they have left, but they're not very religious? That does happen occasionally, but really the ones that tend to have these types of afflictions are the ones that do have some sort of faith basis to them. It doesn't necessarily mean that they believe that evil spirits are out there causing them harm or wanting to do harm to them, but they feel that there's some sort of negative influence going on. And these can be people that are extremely religious, to people that have kind of been forced to find their faith through what they're going through. So even though that they may have not started out there, they may have started skeptical, they may start as a non-believer, they've kind of come, I don't want to say full circle, but they've kind of come around to the idea that, suddenly there's things going on around us that we don't realize, and, perhaps there is a power there that's a little bit more powerful than I am.
Is it like a no atheist in the foxhole, that kind of situation?
It's funny, but that's just about it. There really has to be a belief system in place for things to happen or for things to stop happening. I've been asked that question a lot. If you don't believe in it, does it not happen? Well, I guess you could look at it that way, or you can just look at, boy, that person has an awful lot of really bad luck in their life. Who are we really to say, what's a demonic influence, what's not? It does become very difficult sometimes. But sometimes you have to look for those entry points or those things in their life that stand out, that may have been some sort of invitation, whether they purposely did it or it accidentally happened.
Well, I would think that, if a demonic entity really wanted to mess with somebody or wanted to inhabit, a body, that it would be easier to go after somebody that really did not have a strong faith as opposed to somebody that did.
Well, although faith plays a role in it, I think that a bigger role is that entities like that look for some sort of weakness in an individual, because you do have situations where children are affected by these things.
Yeah.
And if you're thinking about a child that may be 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years old or a little bit older, they really haven't built up a system yet, whether they believe or not. I mean, they're being kind of guided along by their parents. And I'm not saying that it happens very often, but, those children can be influenced by something.
Now, do you get a lot of cases that the children are being possessed?
Possession is very rare. I've had a lot of cases, probably within the last year and a half, where the children are feeling the influence of something there, that they're feeling the oppression of something being there, where, suddenly behaviors change drastically, or, suddenly they're seeing things that they're describing as shadow beings or monsters, where what makes it interesting is other people in the house are seeing the same thing, but they're not talking to the child about it. So, I mean, there's things like that are popping up. Okay. But I think that that's what makes it such a challenging thing, is when you're dealing with someone that age, their faith hasn't been put into place yet. You do have older people that get influenced by those things. But, you can also be looking at individuals that may have psychological challenges or drug alcohol addictions that have those little portways open that allow for that influence. And they may or may not believe, but, things are happening to them. And please don't take me as someone who says, a person with who is subject to alcoholism is possessed by a demon. I don't believe that by any means, but that can open a doorway for influence. And I think it was Father Malachi Martin that said the best place for the devil to hide is out in plain sight. So what better place to hide than psychological challenges or illness?
Let's go back to the alcohol and drug thing.
Mm-hmm.
Would it be...
Lola, you're not possessed. He just said that.
Darn it. No, if somebody, just say, is a drinker, but isn't drunk every single day, but when they do go on a bender, they believe that things are happening to them. Only, but then when they sober up, nothing is said. Their behavior goes back to normal, their normal sober self.
Right.
Is that possible, or is that just like the alcohol demon itself that is affecting their mind?
Well, I think that's where you really need to be careful, because if there is something truly demonic or negative going around that individual, it's not going to happen just when they're drinking or just if they're abusing drugs. It may be more prominent at that time, but you're going to see signs and symbols of things going on around them regardless. It's just when the body and the mind become
weakened, like by alcohol?
Weakened, exactly, weakened. It puts you in a much more suggestible state.
Okay.
Let your walls down, your defenses down. So things that normally may be happening just become a whole lot easier to happen at that point. That's why I think that whenever you look at situations like this, you need to not just look at it from a spiritual perspective or a paranormal perspective, but you have to be really careful. Maybe at times get counselors involved, psychologists involved, to really measure the psychological state of the individuals you're working with.
Okay. All right. I just was curious, because, you hear stories, too, about people that, in the throes of, a real bender. They're seeing things. They're certainly their personalities are completely the opposite of what they would be when they're sober, and maybe, something is really taking advantage, but then when, they sober up, they're stronger, and it tends to stay away.
Well, you have to realize, too, that when you get into states like that, your inhibitions drop. I said that wrong. You become much more likely to just do the things you'd stop yourself from doing before. So, it's a real challenge. I think it's more of a case of someone that's being pushed to continuously abuse a substance, for instance, if you're going to go that direction, where they're looking to decay the body and decay the mind and cause something like that to really weaken the individual over a long period of time as opposed to a bender-type situation.
Okay. All right. It just has been bothering me of late for some, so I'm glad you answered.
Lola's a Jekyll and Hyde drunk.
Yeah,
that's what
I am a happy drunk, and everybody knows
exactly.
that.
A Jekyll.
Oh, are you asking for it now?
So is that kind of like Otis from Andy Griffith's
show?
Both of you. Just remember, you're coming here this summer.
All right, Dwayne. Now, since we last spoke, you've been doing the show and all that kind of stuff, but that was only like the cases you were working on for like a couple weeks. What else is going on? Have you worked any neat cases that you can talk about?
Well, first of all, just to kind of clear this up a little bit, those cases actually weren't just a couple weeks. Even though we were only on site for a little bit, we actually worked on those cases for probably about 6 months prior to even being on site. So, those are things that we worked with over a much longer period of time. As far as other situations that we worked with, actually just recently had a real interesting case that popped up where an individual was having, again, their child influenced by something that was there, but it wasn't so much a demonic force as it was just a negative energy. And we actually had gone down to see this family, and the moment you walked in the house, you could feel it. It was like a slap in the face. Come to find out, there had been a mask that had been given to the family. It was really, just to look at it, it looked like a tourism mask from Africa. But there was such a negative energy just attached to it that it was just overwhelming when you walked in the house. And there's a psychic that I was working with at the time. Her name is Jane Doherty. She's a wonderful woman and a very talented individual. And she has this really unique physical phenomenon that happens when there's negative energy around. Her stomach actually expands to make her look like she's 9 months pregnant.
What?
You know what? I've never seen anything like it in my life. But as she would walk in front of this mask, her stomach would physically expand, and she would look 9 months pregnant. She'd walk past this mask, it completely go back to normal. Now, we took the mask out of the house. Everything completely stopped for the family. The aggression and the anger that was in the house completely dissipated. Everybody was calm. Everybody's been peaceful. And this was about a month and a half ago. Wow. And it just kind of goes to show you that not everything out there is ghost. It's not demonic. Sometimes individuals can just have an intention put into something, and that intention just kind of carries that energy. It's like when you walk into a room full of depressed people, you can feel that big heaviness when you walk in.
Yeah.
That's really kind of what you felt with this mask, just tenfold. And it was just really amazing the effects that it had on people.
Where'd they get it?
They actually had it sent to them from a small village in Africa. They were actually working with a mission down there, and it was sent to them as a gift. And I don't believe that the sender who sent it to them really knew what was attached to it, but it was just something that was kind of passed along.
Wow, that's scary.
Yeah.
That's
and when you went back to see when all the activity started for the family, it was tied to within a week or two of the mask arriving at the house.
Now, okay, a little side story. Like when we were doing investigations, it was always a rule: don't take anything, because you never know what it's attached to. Like you said, it's attached to a mask.
Right.
Well, we did a house, I think in Bel Air. I think that's where it was. It had a lot of activity in it. The kid was being oppressed, just some nasty stuff. And we really didn't see too much. We didn't feel too much while we were there, but we had some good conversations with the people. And they had a bird cage there just in the basement, And I was like, I'll buy that off of you, because I wanted to get my little brothers a bird. Their birthdays were coming up. So so they're like, oh, just take it. It's a thank you for coming. We're like, oh, okay, So I buy the bird. I clean the cage up. I set it up in their house. All nice and good. Like, within days later.
The bird died.
No, but my little brother was getting pretty oppressed. He was talking about suicide. He was young, just like the oppression was with that bird cage. It's crazy that, it can be totally random that something can attach itself to. We got rid of the bird cage. Everybody was happy, and nothing.
What'd you do with the bird?
A new cage.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I thought maybe you got rid of the bird,
Have
too.
you ever heard of barbecue chicken legs?
Oh, that's just wrong.
I dipped a little parakeet in buffalo sauce and ranch.
You would. Oh.
Delicious.
It's funny, though, when you think about things like that seem very benign, that could mean nothing, like a bird cage, like a mask, and the meanings that could be attached to it. I mean, it's like when we did the documentary, one of the things that really stood out to a lot of people was the tattoo on the woman's hand. That it was a quarter moon with a star with the blood drops. And a lot of the emails that I received said, well, you realize, don't you, that the quarter moon like that with a star is a sign of Islam?
Yeah.
Well, absolutely it is. I don't disagree with anybody about that. We had a little difficult time tracking down the meaning of the symbols that were there. But when you look at the context in which they were used in a satanic manner or a demonic manner for a specific type ritual. So suddenly these symbols that may be meaningless or have opposite meaning in other faiths and other religions suddenly took on a completely different meaning.
So not because it was a sign of Islam, but because what she was meaning it for. Right.
Not necessarily what she was meaning it for, but what the individuals had meant it for that had placed it there.
Oh, the tattoo.
Right.
Oh,
right.
Oh.
They had intended it for a specific purpose.
Wow.
So it ended up serving that purpose. It's a lot like I like to use the example of the pentagram, for instance.
Uh-huh.
In pagan and Wiccan ritual, that's actually a sign of protection. Whereas if you take it and you invert it and change it around, suddenly it becomes a summoning sign for for satanic practice or demonic practice. So people don't realize sometimes the subtleties that you have to look for in situations like this. And these a lot of times are subtleties that a clergy person doesn't necessarily pick up on, because that's not what they're accustomed to looking for.
Yeah.
Well, tell me this: are you in favor of the Catholic Church now really beginning to recognize again exorcism as a real ritual and rite in the church? And they had a conference not too long ago, or they're planning on one, to teach some of the priests in, some of the rituals and rites to exorcism.
I do believe that's a good thing. I think it's important, though, that it's not just the Catholic Church. I think it's important that all faith systems recognize that. And I think it's actually probably a very important thing that they are finally taking the strides to publicly acknowledge, the things that are going on, because they have for a long time behind closed doors.
Yeah.
And, now perhaps if they're willing to educate some of the priests, the younger priests especially, that are coming up through, maybe they'll be able to recognize the signs a little bit sooner and have a little bit more knowledge about how to help individuals, as well as balance out, what's truly spiritual and demonic in nature versus what's psychological. And I think those are very important things to be able to work with.
Well, as opposed to some other religions, too, that immediately it's not psychological. It's got to be demons, and they're performing their own exorcism rites that some of them are a little barbaric.
Well, some of them are, but I think that's kind of one of the interesting roles that I play, is that you have the opportunity to look at a lot of the different faith systems and belief systems. And, one of the ones that really is misunderstood, that really kind of fascinates me is voodoo.
Mm-hmm.
Throughout a long time, I mean, they've pretty much painted the picture of voodoo being this scary, dark belief system that's out there. And really, it's completely the opposite of that, in that it's a very community-based belief system that it doesn't recognize demonic forces. Yes, there's forces out there that can be pushed either way, good or bad, but they welcome spirit possession as a form of celebration. It's a way that they allow their ancestors to celebrate again life. So it's really interesting to see the different ways in which different belief systems approach things.
That's still a little scary, Dwayne.
It is, and I've never participated in a ritual or had that opportunity, but I do have a friend that's a priestess down in New Orleans, and they say it's an eye-opening sight. So without truly experiencing it myself, I really can't say one way or the other, but I think you have to be open to the way everybody views things if you're going to be able to help individuals sometimes.
That's fair.
Because if I walk in as a devout Catholic to help someone who's being oppressed by a voodoo curse, if I don't understand the basis in which voodoo works and how they believe, there's no way I can help.
No, you're right. You're right. What's the other? There's voodoo, and what's the other one?
Hoodoo?
No.
Hoodoo. Hoodoo is actually the more negative of the two. It's more practitioner-based, and that's really more one that's steeped in curses and being more of a self-serving type religion or belief system than anything else. But, let's be fair about all religions. I mean, you can go really that way with any of the belief systems. It all depends on how the individual spins it, or the group spins it.
I thought there was something that started with a C.
Well, there is Santeria.
Yeah. Okay. SC kind of.
Yeah, they sound the same.
Yeah, they do.
I mean, Santeria is very similar to voodoo. I mean, it's hoodoo is more of a Native American blend of voodoo. When the African Americans came over on slave ships, that's kind of how all that ended up blending together. Santeria tends to be more of a West African-based religious system.
Now, let me. Do you know much about Santeria?
Enough to be dangerous. That's why. That's why when it comes to stuff like that, I tend to refer more to the individuals that can help a little bit with educating me a little bit more. The mask that I spoke of was from a Santeria practitioner.
Oh, okay. So. Now, what I've heard, from my own research of that, it's like the Catholic Church, back in the day used to like take their, like when they were converting other religions, they would take their beliefs and kind of mix it in with what they were already practicing. That's why we celebrate Christmas when we celebrate Christmas and Halloween and all that kind of stuff. Well, they took the God, where what they were worshiping with the original Santeria, and they replaced it with saints. So Santeria is really like the worship of saints, but it's really they just kind of renamed the gods that they were already worshiping into saint names.
So, okay. So it's like Alias.
Maybe.
I'm just trying to figure it out. So
it's really, the original customs and stuff like that, and they just kind of mix things around,
Yeah.
Not saying the Catholic Church is bad, just old school Catholic Church like to do things their way.
Well, but that's a smart, if you're going to try and introduce your religion into another culture, the smart thing to do is try and integrate, because people, that's the easiest way to understand is if you can draw comparisons between the two.
Well, yeah, like I said, Christmas, that was, it's the winter solstice, and you guys are celebrating anyway, so let's just keep celebrating and call it Christmas.
And get presents.
We give you presents at somebody's birthday, nobody loses. And they're like, okay.
All right.
But when it comes down to work in demonology, I mean, that's what everything really in the end boils down to, is belief. And whether it's belief in religion or just belief in the event that's happening for them, it doesn't really matter. Because as long as they believe what's happening is happening, that's what you have to work within.
Yeah, it's real to them. It's all perception, And
perception is a very powerful thing.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
So what are the kind of fun cases you got for us, Dwayne? What's the craziest thing you've had since the last time we talked? And I don't want to say crazy. Let me refrain. What would you think that I would think was crazy, then that you thought was really important and you had to deal with it?
Okay, Dwayne. Now, did you follow that, or do you need a map?
I've done these interviews with Jordan enough that I can kind of follow his twists and turns. It's kind of like going up to the Hare Krishna's place, lots of turns up the hill. I have to say the scariest thing was, a case that we worked in Ohio not long ago. That one of the things that we do on any investigation is we want to do some paranormal stuff to see if we can capture evidence of anything being there. And in this one situation, we were doing EVPs and, trying to capture things on video and audio recordings, and absolutely nothing was happening. And, of course, as you know from our experiences in Moundsville, nothing happens when you want it to happen.
Absolutely.
And as we're sitting there, just in the living room, kind of finally just giving up for the night, and we're just talking, Tammy, who came down with me last time, she suddenly jumps off the couch and grabs around her neck and just says, "Oh my God, there's something going on." And she was literally scratched across the chest by something was there. That becomes a very scary situation in that, it's one thing to hear voices. It's one thing to maybe think you see something out of the corner of your eye, but to have something manifest on someone who's physically in front of you is something completely different. And when it begins to happen, my first reaction is to go over and lay my hands on them and start to pray and at that point, I took holy water and blessed the area that was becoming scratched. And, when that happened, she immediately felt a burning sensation. And the best way that she could describe it was that she just felt like there was something that just kind of encroached on her and invaded her space. And it was probably the most uncomfortable feeling she's ever had, because, suddenly something's happening to her that she can't see, she can't rationalize with her own mind, but it's happening. And I think that's really the most scary things that happen, are things that physically occur to individuals. There was another case that we were on where it seemed the closer that we got to the entity, and this was actually an outside case, that my wife was actually physically shoved. Shoved hard enough where she was thrown to the ground. And
wow.
That's the kind of stuff that really kind of freaks you out and bothers you, is when things become physical. Because suddenly it takes it from that place in your mind of listening to an EVP and wondering to yourself, geez, am I really just kind of putting these sounds together to make it sound like it's answering me? Or, looking at a photograph and suddenly thinking something's there, to knowing that something came up behind you and just shoved you down.
Yeah, you get, like, you hear all the time, and we have people on the show all the time that are like, oh, yeah, ghosts can't hurt you, welcome them in, they're in my home, yeah, they're not going to hurt me, and then you get to the point where, okay, now it's, like in Tammy's case, it's scratching her, it's inflicting pain onto her, it pushed your wife down.
Right.
At one point, do you say, okay, the ghost isn't going to hurt you, but this is?
It really gets tough to draw that line. It's no different than these people that are forced down in the middle of the night and feel sleep paralysis, where you suddenly completely feel helpless. At what point do you finally say, they can harm you in some way? Is it a situation where I think somebody's going to burst into flames by something being around them? I don't believe that. But I definitely think that they can influence enough things around you to have you cause harm to yourself in some way. And that's the really scary part, is things around you that can influence you and you not realize it.
If you had stuff follow you home and that kind of thing, that to me is even scarier than a physical confrontation, is the fact that something can just, get in your car and follow you, or something, and follow you home. And then what do you do?
I don't care how careful you are. We always tell people that when you go out and do an investigation, you say a prayer of protection, and when you leave, you say a cleansing prayer to leave it there. I don't care how careful you are. Sometimes something is going to follow you home. And honestly, I haven't thought about this in years until someone had brought up an experience they had. I can remember probably 10 years ago, and had lived in a different house, and before I was married to Sarah, and it was just me and my kids in the house. And for some reason, we were going to have a little sleepover in my daughter's room, and she was up on the top bunk, and I was sleeping in the bottom bunk. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night after an investigation and laying in bed, seeing this figure standing over top of me. And I can rationalize in my mind that there wasn't really enough space for that person to be standing there, but yet there was a solid black figure standing there.
Really?
It scared the hell out of me. And things can follow you home. They don't always have to be nasty things by any means. I remember doing an investigation in an old nursing home at one point where after the investigation, probably for 3 or 4 days, there was this flowered scent of perfume that would kind of waft through the house every so often.
I've heard of that before.
Just kind of that, I don't know if there's a politically correct way of putting this, but kind of like a grandmother-y type perfume that would be there. So I think definitely some things can follow you home, maybe just because they're lonely. So I don't think they're always necessarily things to be scared of.
That's what I was going to ask. Do you welcome it? Do you say, "Oh, my name's Dwayne. I got plenty of room"? You know,
absolutely not. I have 3 kids, a wife, 2 dogs, and a cat. I don't have enough room in my house for more spirits. I guess I've always been of the mindset that I know that there's spirits around my house. I know that things come and go sometimes. As long as you're not negative, as long as you're not here to cause harm to someone, I don't want to know that you're here. It's okay. This is kind of my space, but just leave me alone. I don't necessarily like to welcome things in because you never know what you're welcoming in.
The devil lies.
The devil does lie.
And that scares me.
I've actually had some reports from actually a few different people as of recently where they tell me that their children are seeing ghost children appearing to them. Mm. But when they start to begin to describe the apparitions that they're seeing, suddenly there's something just not quite right about the child. Whether it's deformed in some way or
goosebumps right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's just something not quite right, and that's one of the markers that we tend to look for when there does become a demonic entity involved. If it's presenting itself as something that's trying to gain trust, is there something not quite right about it? And I'm really of the mindset that the spirit of children don't stick around. I mean, they're innocents. They go to the higher place where they need to go.
So you really don't want to go to that elementary school with us, then, do you? Maybe we do need you.
Well, elementary schools are fun because you got all those urban legends tied in with it, too. I'm sure that there's been some child that died there during the construction of the building and all those fun things.
Actually,
there was
this place,
coal strike or something like that.
The kids were killed there was a coal strike, and the school ended up being caught in the crosshairs.
Yeah, the fire. There was crossfire.
And then it burned down. Then it was rebuilt in 1920, and they used it as a clinic during either an influenza outbreak, maybe, or something. So there were a lot of kids, but that school was open until 2000. They just closed it. Yeah, so there's now here's a guy, if this spirit wants to follow me home, I will put him in the car. He was a janitor, and he actually, those bathrooms, they say, when you walk in, the bathrooms are spotless, including the top of the light fixtures, because this guy was really anal about keeping the school clean. And so there'll be mold and everything all around, but boy, those bathrooms are clean. So I'm thinking, okay, honey, you come home with me. I do need you, but this could be, and the theory behind the guys that own the school and they've done a lot of investigations in there, said that sometimes with kids, they don't realize that they're dead. That that they're simply lost, and so you need to tell them it's okay. You can go. Your parents are waiting for you, and you need to go. So.
I think sometimes too. A lot of times with schools like that, you get a lot of residual energy too. From kids running up and down the hallways, and things like that. So you do get a lot of that energy that's left over as well. I actually did hear a story, but I don't think it was. Well, I guess that's another story for another time when I remember what the whole story was. But I actually had recently had someone tell me about a bad experience that they had at a former school, but I can't remember where it was. It may have been in Ohio someplace. But it's kind of interesting. It's just recently closed.
Yeah,
in the last 10
2000.
years.
I was surprised that it was open as long as it was. They said part of it's still in really good shape, but then there's another whole section where the roof is starting to cave in. But you can see it right off of, I think, 70 or 79. It's not that far from here. So I'm looking forward to it,
Now, Dwayne, in that situation, because I remember asking specifically if he thought it was residual, and he said no because there's interactions.
Okay.
Now, with your, you deal with this kind of stuff more, that, the children pass on. It's kind of the age of accountability, that kind of deal. I'm in agreement with you that, kids don't stick around. So, yeah, I see where a lot of the energy can be residual, but do you think that maybe a demonic entity or some negative spirit is taking, what's going on and saying, ooh, this is a good home for me, I can really screw with people?
Again, I don't know the whole history of the place other than what you just shared, but I think it definitely could be something that could be manipulated, because if you do look at what little bit you shared, it was a place that was caught in the crossfire, so there was already some negative energy going on there that could draw things in. Something like an old school that's been closed or abandoned, it wouldn't surprise me if kids or someone has broken in at some point or another and tried to call up dead spirits of past children or things like that, and maybe inadvertently opened up some doorways. Lots of possibilities that are there. There's actually a place, Prospect Place in Ohio, that has what they claim is a little boy that's up in a ballroom upstairs that'll roll a ball back and forth with you.
Yeah.
It's not a little boy. So, definitely.
You say it's not a little boy?
It's not a little boy.
So what do you think it is?
What's there is definitely a demonic entity.
So you think there's just like a demon in that's like, because you want to get biblical, the devil's job is to steal, kill, and destroy. He's there to confuse you, So
he lies.
Yeah, like Lola said, the devil lies. So there's a demonic entity up there saying, oh, it's a little boy. So all these people are like, yeah, let's go play with the little boy. Let's go play with the boy. Here he's being able to, open up doors.
Yeah.
Well, and that's just it. The simplest door can be a little child saying, can I play with you? And you say yes. That is an invitation. People don't realize that. So you do have to be careful with what you're doing.
All right, you're coming. We'll let you know the day, and you just sit back. And I guarantee you we won't put you up in the wilderness this time.
Last time I came, everything ran away. So do you really want that to happen?
That's true.
Well, we don't know if it was necessarily you or that Lola just wanted it so bad that they were like, let's just not give it to her and see what she does.
They wanted to see me. Well, I did pull that outside. We didn't get anything after that. Oh, no. So it was my fault after all.
There it is.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, Dwayne, we are out of time. What's the update on your show?
Yes,
We're still waiting to see if, what Animal Planet's going to do with it, or?
We are still waiting. I know that they're waiting to still get more feedback from people and, see what the numbers bring and kind of see where it goes. Unfortunately, the television thing is outside of my realm of understanding. I just kind of go out and just do my thing. And, it's just going to be a wait-and-see situation at this point.
So we can say right now you're the star of the documentary, Demon Exorcist?
Well, I guess you could say that.
Don't be so modest.
Hopefully it becomes a series that we all get to enjoy. And when we have this investigation, you're not going to charge us, for your celebrity.
No, and honestly, what I really feel about the documentary or the series potential on Animal Planet is that it's really given me the opportunity to be able to go out and help individuals that normally would not get the help.
Yeah, that's good.
And that's really what it's all about.
Well, I hope they pick it up. I've been checking to see if it's on. I haven't seen it. Why Animal Planet? That's what threw me when Jordan told me it was Animal Planet. And I thought, What's he going to do? Work with animals that are possessed?
Well,
Seriously,
they're looking at the ultimate animal, the human, and the way it responds.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. We wish you the best of luck.
Yes.
All right,
really
thanks.
do.
And we'll let you. I'm telling you, you're coming for this investigation. So just you and Tammy already know you got plans for one weekend this summer.
So is there a Hare Krishna campus down there then?
We'll find you one.
We aim to please here at Whispers Radio, Dwayne, and I'm sure we can find accommodation.
Yes. Well, actually, my sister's working at a motel now, so if all else fails, we'll put you in there.
Oh, don't get me wrong. They were great. It was just quite the experience.
Yeah, I was better you than me, but
It was something you'll never forget.
That's true.
That's for sure.
There you go. All right, Dwayne, like I said, we are out of time. Thank you very much for coming on and sharing with us as soon as you could.
Yes.
All right, thanks a lot.
Hey,
Thanks, Dwayne.
See you, Dwayne.
All right.
And that's Dwayne Claude for Demon Exorcist on Animal Planet. Good
He's
stuff.
So funny. We had the best time with him that night. And I don't know what because he had been on with us, a couple of times. I don't know what I was expecting, but he was so funny. We laughed the whole night long.
I know my landlord, Mark, he was watching, it came on TV, and he's sitting there, he's talking to his wife, he's like, Renee, is that the guy that was at the pen with us?
Yep.
And she's like, oh my gosh. Yeah.
I've been what day did you say it was on? Sundays, right?
It was on a few, I think they aired it 4 times. I don't know if it's still airing.
Done now.
Rachel has it DVR'd.
Well, that does me no good unless she wants to loan me her DVR. But, no, I know. But I did. I saw part of it online.
Oh, did you?
So yeah. So
next week is going to be fun. We're doing a show on poltergeists. We have Michael Clarkson, who just wrote a book on poltergeists, and from what I hear, it's going to be quite the show.
Now that's another thing that they're here. Oh no, they're back.
It depends on which one you watch.
Oh, I see. Okay.
All right, everybody. Until next time, don't be afraid. Only believe.